Hello everyone, it is good to see you again. If I haven't seen you before, welcome. This is the chair system, and this is essentially the show where I show you how to make sense of the whole fretboard in a really simple way by just understanding this simple pattern, which repeats itself all over the fretboard and tells you everything you need to know if you are wanting to lead and solo, improvise, do all kinds of interesting stuff. If you're wanting to do things that are very complicated, it makes it a whole lot simpler. If you're wanting to do things that are simpler, well, it also kind of makes it simpler. So, anyway, if you haven't encountered this before, I will have videos at the end of this video, and you can go back and see what all we've covered before. In our last lesson, we went over the triads, because since every single chair is identical, or rather it's made up of the same notes as every other chair, you can very easily find the triads. First, third, fifth. First, third, fifth. And in the one before that, we actually covered what all the intervals are. First, second, third, fifth, sixth. Now, it might not be entirely obvious right now how useful all that's going to be to you, but when you know this pattern, and this pattern repeats everywhere, and you can immediately know what all the intervals are, it just makes it incredibly easier to play. Because you can just choose a note anywhere on the fretboard, like, say, this note right here. I'm not even sure what that is at the moment, but this note. I just make a chair off it. Just like these chairs, I just make it anywhere else. I immediately know my first, second, third, fifth, sixth. I know my triad. And today we're going to talk about the fifth. Now, the fifth may not seem incredibly sexy, but believe it or not, it's really sexy. In fact, you might even argue that it's the most important note in any scale other than, or rather in a major or minor scale, other than the root. That fifth is incredibly important. And part of what's so cool about it is that it makes kind of a wild chord. We haven't talked about chords yet, but one of the great things about this chair system is you're going to be able to build any kind of chord you want out of the chairs. Now, there are a couple that you can actually make out of a single chair, namely the fifths. And this is a very simple G5 because it's made up of the G and the D. So you are going to have that power chord, which is what most people call them, most people just say power chord, in every single chair. And what's really nice about this is it starts to show you what the chair system really does in a more, let's say, meta kind of way. Because when you're learning the chair system, what you're really learning is the pattern behind everything. The pattern which lies behind all the boxes and chord shapes and everything. You're really just learning the whole thing, and you're learning it in little chunks because all those chunks are identical. So, if you know that with every root goes a fifth, and that fifth is in the exact same place, basically you go down one string and then up 2 frets, you'll always know your fifth. And you can know that anywhere on the fretboard. So I just know that if I pick, I don't know, this one, I know that's the fifth. I don't have to know what note it is, I just know the fifth is going to be there. And this may not totally make sense at the moment, but it's incredibly useful to know the fifth of every single note in your chair. So in other words, if that is a power chord, then so is this. Now, if you know anything about pentatonic scales, and essentially these notes do make up a pentatonic scale, even though I don't want you to just look at it as a pentatonic scale because it's a lot more than that. But you can make chords out of any notes in a pentatonic scale. Any notes that you put together, so long as they are in the same pentatonic scale, are going to make some kind of a chord. And this will start showing you sort of how that works, even though it's probably the simplest chord you can make. But you will notice that no matter where you play this, you'll notice that that fifth I'm going to is always part of one of the chairs. So every note that I'm playing, all of these power chords are within the chairs. So if, for instance, you're playing over a chord progression and you are changing between different chords, well, first of all, those chords are probably going to be from this chair, or possibly from two other notes. But the advantage here is that it kind of gives you a visual circle of fifths. If you don't know what the circle of fifths is, don't worry about it right now, but essentially that's just a way of figuring out what chords are associated with any given scale, or rather any given key. And so what this automatically does is it shows you where all the fives are within this key. Why is that so useful? Well, for one thing, fives are wild chords. And when I say wild chords, that just means they can be both major and minor. They aren't exactly associated with a major scale or a minor scale. So, for instance, a G5 can be played over either a G minor or a G major. And so every single five in this chair is going to work together. They're all going to sound good. They're all going to sound good together. These are particularly used by, for instance, metal. Metal likes to use a lot of A5s because they sound good with a lot of distortion. They don't start sounding muddy. And very often that third note of the triad is going to be taken up by someone else in the band. But then again, there's guys like Frank Zappa that just like fives all around because it just makes the whole concept a whole lot easier and allows you to do a lot of things that you wouldn't normally be able to do. So you can play a five in place of either a major or a minor or just by itself or whatever. But you can also thicken it up. Watch this. Because since this A5 is made of a G and a D, you also know that the top of the next chair, which is also a root, can also be played with it. So you can play this A5 on 3 strings. Now if you want to, and I know that probably not all of you can make this stretch, but it is a great way to understand the structure of this. You can pull your pinky finger down to right here. And it's going to be also on a D. So you've got a G and a D and another G and another D. And so this is a 4-note G5. And what's nice about that, and this is if there's one thing that I can possibly explain about the whole fretboard, it's the way that it repeats. Because this chair system makes a whole lot of use of the fact that it repeats. And because it repeats, anything you do anywhere, you can do somewhere else. So watch. If I'm doing this big 4-note A5 here, I can just move it down to this next note, and I know that I'm going to have an A5. A B5. And I can do that for these notes, all the way down. It doesn't matter where. So for instance, if I wanted to play it here, I could hold down this note, and this note, and this note, and this note, and it just goes down into the next chair. And so you can do that anywhere. Just so long as you see these chairs in your head, all you have to do is press down those notes and you know you're going to have an A5 chord. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because you can do it within one chair, but as you learn the chairs going down here, and then the chairs that are going down here, and the chairs that are going down here, you'll find that you can make any kind of chord. Not just the fives. They're just the easy ones. Hey guys, my apologies, but while I was editing this video, I realized it was running way too long. So I'm going to split this into 2 videos, 2 parts, and come back on the next episode and you will have the rest of it. I'll see you guys next time.